Coming up on The Buck Stops Here.
I do think the majority of the businesses that die in the next 5 years won't die because AI replaced them. I think they're going to die because a competitor used AI to offer a service that made the old way look dumb and inefficient in comparison. Opportunity is about doing things that were previously impossible. This is literally like, what if we just invented a teleportation machine? You would elevate a standard $50 a plate or $30 a plate catering gig and elevate it into a luxury experience. You could win the bid every time because your proposal is an emotional story, while your competitor's proposal is just a plate of chicken and fish. Let a customer of yours text you a 5-second video of their furnace making weird noise. You can train a custom AI model on the sounds of failing part, and you could give your tech a 90% accurate diagnosis potentially before you even dispatch the trucks. Hello, welcome back to another episode of The Buck Stops Here. This is another segment in our 9-part AI series. This episode is entitled AI Opportunity, Changing the Game and Finding Net New Revenue. Basically, efficiency, which is what we covered in our previous episode, was about doing old things faster. Opportunity is about doing things that were previously impossible. So we're moving from cost savings to revenue generation. And this episode is a bit more difficult than efficiency for a lot of people because they know what they've done before, but sometimes mapping out a new road, literally, we're changing the destination is what we're doing. And it's not like going from road A to road B and finding a more efficient way to get this. This is literally like, what if we just invented a teleportation machine? Wouldn't that be a way to achieve our goals or things in a more efficient manner or way we didn't do things? Or it's not just about being on the road. It's about, hey, we're on this road, and while we're at it, there's a gravel pit over there. Can we set up a gravel company with our heavy equipment that's moving down this road at the same time? That is the kind of thinking I want you to put on. And those aren't proper analogies necessarily, but that's what we're going to be covering on this episode of The Buck Stops Here. Now, as a clearinghouse matter, if you'd like to go back, we had an kind of overview episode where we talked a little bit about AI efficiency and AI opportunity together in one episode. This episode is a product of comments from listeners like you. Basically, everybody said, well, that's great, Dave, but cut the crap. Tell us how to actually put this in place. Give us some real world examples. So, as we like to say on The Buck Stops Here, the buck stops with us. We're responsible for those things. So let's take a minute here and see if we can be responsive to your feedback. And as always, I appreciate listeners like you. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends. Give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I feel like that's really how we can help people find out about this podcast. And we have another companion podcast we've built called AI the Pod. It's AI the Podcast. It is about the news that affects small and medium businesses and how that can practically be applied to your business moving forward. It's AI podcasting with the human element because as of 2026, we still believe that humans, at the end of the day, are the only thing that matters. We do appreciate you listening to any of the shows that we put on. I am repping Kansas City today. I'm representing the KC Improv. And I just had to give a shout out to that because one of our other podcasts is called the Kansas City Leaders Podcast. So anyway, just a shout out to the KC Improv Training Company. Really enjoy the work we're doing with them. Now let's go into AI opportunity. So assuming that you've listened a few episodes back and you listen to the episode on AI governance, so you understand that you need to have brakes installed in your company so that you can make sure you apply these AI tools and go very, very fast, but so you don't end up in a fiery car crash. We're trying to give you an idea of how to do this successfully and safely. At the same time, bring in ways you can actually look at how this applies. I promised in the last episode I was going to give you 5 concrete examples. If time allows, I might give a few more, but I'm going to give 5 examples that I have gone through thinking about the best way for you to put this in your business. Okay, so the first one I'm going to start out with is what is traditionally called the blue collar service businesses. So the traditional way of competing was, and this is HVAC, like heating and air, plumbing, landscaping, pest control. The standard way to compete, which by the way, still really, really works, is that you would compete on price, speed, your Yelp or Google reviews. You fix things when they break. It's really highly reactive. And if you're really forward thinking, you would think about ways to get in front of that. How do you get in front of builders who are building new subdivisions, et cetera? But a lot of it's reactive. It really is. Heating and air is about either new installations or you're fixing stuff when it goes wrong. Some people call pest control companies ahead of time, but most of us call them because we like, man, I don't know what those are that eating that tree, but it's really close to my house. So that's kind of how those things would work. But here's the idea. Using AI, instead of waiting for the phone to ring, use an AI agent to cross-reference your customer database. You look at your install dates, the equipment types, local weather forecasts, and the AI could automatically flag 150 customers whose 5-year-old AC units are statistically likely to fail during the upcoming 100-degree heat wave. It drafts and sends a personalized text like, hey, John, it looks like a major heat wave is hitting your city next week. Based on our records, your 2020 or 2019 unit might need a capacitor check before the stress hits. Do you want us to swing by Friday for an $89 checkup? Now, that sounds weird, but that is something that most heating and air companies don't have a plan for. They talk about it. I've worked with those in my digital marketing history very effectively, but most people don't realize that they could maybe look at doing that. Putting it in your company may not be as easy. That's plug for myself at Calray. We do these kind of systems. We build these kind of systems for people. We help find a way to do it. And for most clients, this is not something that their current CRM, their HubSpot, their Service Titan, their Go High Level, none of those really do that very well. You really need to have a different way of doing that. And the other thing about it is that you need to go ahead and start recording that information now that you might need to know. If you listen to our AI efficiency episode, you'll know that we had a recorder that we recommended that people maybe go out and purchase. I think that anybody in the service industries right now needs to go to every job site and, you're in a house and you basically make a note. They have a whole bunch of copper fixtures in their house. The house was built around 1980. Copper has a lifespan of 40 to 50 years. They have some pinpoint leaks likely to fail under, and you may have pitched them on it back then a year ago, but the reality of it is that you want to remain top of mind when they do have a problem. And the reality of it is for most clients, it's a lot cheaper to fix those pipes now than when you've got 1,000 gallons of water in your basement. So this is a way to service your clients better and let them know. And I believe for any company out there that is in the service industry, they can simply turn this into what we call net new revenue. You have just turned a slow Tuesday into a fully booked week of 200 calls, proactive maintenance, catching problems before there's an emergency. And you also, if you do catch those problems before there's an emergency, think about the loyalty that buys you with that customer. So here's a bonus idea. Let a customer of yours text you a 5-second video. Everybody's got one of these in their pocket. Have them text you a 5-second video of their furnace making weird noise. You can train a custom AI model on the sounds of failing parts. Believe it or not, those systems make very particular sounds. And you could give your tech a 90% accurate diagnosis potentially before you even dispatch the trucks. The reality of it is that you could not do that before you had AI. You couldn't do it. And I've helped put these systems in companies. If you want to know how to do that, that is the kind of stuff that Calray does. We think about that after the fact. By the way, that's a freebie. If you're in the trades and you like those, go do that or give us a call and we'd love to tell you how to do it. Okay, the next one I'm going to do. I want to go into what I'd call instant kind of bespoke prototyping. Now, by the way, you may need a couple pieces of software to do these things, but these are all things that you may not even known were possible. This is pretty easy. Sometimes the barrier to closing a sale, if you're a furniture company or something like that, is the customer's lack of imagination. The customer can't a lot of times imagine how products are going to actually look in their space. Now, you've seen this before, right? It's like, put yourself in the outfit, put yourself in the dress, etc. But one thing about it is that you could have a customer send you a cell phone picture of their dining room, or if it's a business like their storefront, and then right there in the showroom, you feed the photo into an AI image generator trained on your product catalog. And in 30 seconds, it could generate 4 photorealistic images of this product they're looking at sitting inside their actual room with perfect lighting. So the idea that this would generate net new revenue for you is kind of cool because you have dropped that design phase bottleneck from 3 days, they got to think about it, to 30 seconds. They don't know what it's going to look like. You stop selling the concept and you start selling a reality. People can envision that in their space. And you can imagine how that close rate would skyrocket because the client has already seen the finished product in their house. And the reality of it is, eventually that may be commonplace. Everybody may do that eventually. They aren't doing it right now. And the idea with it is you want to give people options that they didn't even know were possible. So one way I like to think about this is what I call the 100 interns exercise. It's sitting down with a whiteboard. And by the way, I still recommend for concepting, I think nothing is as good as a blank sheet of paper. Because on a blank sheet of paper, which is totally analog, you can do anything. There are no lines, there are no limitations, merely what you can draw and do. But what you want to ask is if you had 100 free, incredibly fast, but slightly inexperienced interns starting tomorrow, what new service would we launch? And you want to start with a blank sheet of paper and you want to think about that. I run a digital marketing agency. So I was like, do I put this one in there or not? Something that we've been experimenting with, etc. So this is what I call real-time localized trend jacking. So the old way we used to do it at agencies is we'd spend 3 weeks doing market research. We'd come up with 3 static campaign concepts and we'd pitch them to a client. That's kind of the traditional way agencies, Mad Men, if you've ever watched the TV show, that's kind of how a lot of people do these things. But by the time the ads launch, the cultural moment is past. You can actually do localized trend jacking as you're moving from static, slow-moving campaigns to hyper-local, real-time culture relevance at scale. So I'm currently in Kansas City. And by the time you're probably watching this episode, in just the next couple weeks, the World Cup will be in town. And what we are thinking about is how to use AI to monitor hyper-local social media trends, whether events or sports outcome happening in different places in Kansas City. We don't know what it's going to be like, but it's going to be a bit of a madhouse. So the idea with it is that when somebody wins a massive game or something's happening in town, your AI agent instantly drafts 5 localized ad variants for your client. So it's a local hardware store, it could be a sports bar, it could be a brewery, and it generates a creative and it pushes it to your manager, human, who looks at it for, to spend maybe 5 minutes or less to instantly review and approve. And so I think why this is net new revenue for us is we're not just selling campaigns anymore. We're selling a culturally relevant subscription. You are charging your clients a premium to guarantee they are the very first business to capitalize on the local events in real time. And that is a really incredible way to move that really, really forward for people. You can do something in a way that you can capitalize on what's happening in your local community. Now, remember, this is all about AI opportunities. These are things you really couldn't do 5 or 6 years ago, or they required an agency with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people to do that. And now you can do it with a staff of 5. Homebot. If you're enjoying the show, please help us not keep it a secret. Subscribe, rate us a 5 stars, and help us keep the lights on and keep the message going. Whether you're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you're enjoying us, your support really does matter. If you've got a story or a resource we missed, please tell us in the comments. We would love to hear from you. Now, back to the show. The last time my wife and I bought a house, we built a pundit square. We are not a pundit square or a list of, maybe it wasn't a pundit square, but it was like nice to haves, must haves, negative, no's, and negatives, right? And we put things in each category. But we discovered that some of these things, and it took us time. We went and saw a whole bunch of homes first. I mean, we saw probably like 10 before we were like, oh, this is definitely no. For me, road noise was absolutely not. I will not live right next to a highway. Absolutely not. For me, that's a no. And so you have to know what that is for you. For me, going outside and being in that backyard where it's quiet and serene is something that I really, really wanted. And I was willing to not live in a house that, was near any barrier or anything else. Saw some really nice houses and I went outside. And by the way, you do want to check that. You want to go at 5 o'clock in the afternoon when it's rush hour traffic. Because you went at like 11 o'clock on a Saturday, it's quiet. But at 5 o'clock, it's like you're at a raceway. So here's the reason it's important. Because right now, the old way of doing this is that a buyer tells you their budget, the bedroom count, you set up an automated MLS multiple listing service, and you have a drip campaign that sends them an email or a text every time a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house hits the market. And you're competing with Zillow, honestly. What you can do as a real estate agent is set up like the hyper-local lifestyle matchmaker. I'm going to coin that and sell that. Well, I'm the hyper-local lifestyle matchmaker. So the idea is that buyers don't just buy houses, they buy lifestyles. AI allows you to analyze and match a lifestyle not just square footage. And that's important. So here's how you execute it. You have new clients fill out a detailed narrative quiz about their ideal weekend, their hobbies, their coffee habits, their commute tolerance, and you feed that into your custom AI, which could cross-reference local city data, ability scores, coming commercial zoning, and by the way, this is easier said than done, but if you want to know how to do it, we build these kind of things. It takes some doing, but the AI generates a customized neighborhood perspectives that includes hidden gem neighborhoods that they've never considered. And you, in theory, in the long run, you could generate like AI narrated video tours of whatever local coffee house or do your own thing. There's a whole bunch of things you can do there. But instead of being a transaction coordinator, you become a high-end relocation consultant. You would capture out-of-state buyers. You would be the person in the know because a lot of times it's just by word of mouth. The reality of it is no real estate agents are doing these things. And by the way, these things I put together for this pod today are things I wanted to create stuff that I don't see anybody doing, but I know that I could build for the right kind of real estate agent. And this way you command absolute loyalty because you proved you understand how they want to live, not just what they want to buy, because people don't know. Let's do this hospitality and event planning business. This is one I've thought about a lot lately. So a client comes to you to cater a corporate retreat or high-end wedding, for example. Used to hand them a PDF menu with like a package A, B, C. We have to do food tastings, we want to schedule that, etc. And what you could be moved to is that instead of becoming like somebody who's putting together a corporate retreat and who's catering that event, instead of becoming a commodity, which is what really happens when you're a caterer, right? People come look at your stuff. If you're lucky, they look at the food, but a lot of times they look at the price. They look at the price and say, oh, that's so much per plate, et cetera. That's part of it. But what if instead you could become like an experiential designer? So imagine this. This is just an idea. I had this idea last night and anticipating the episode. Instead of them handing them a menu, you ask them for 3 stories. Like, what's your favorite childhood memory? What's your favorite vacation? And what's a movie you like or love? And you feed this into an AI model and you task it with developing like a bespoke culinary narrative. And in minutes, the AI will output a completely unique, 5-course menu inspired by those stories. You could have AI help generate visual mood boards of the table settings, lighting, the placement design. But this is something you couldn't probably do, or it would take days of time. And if you're selling somebody on you as a vendor for the food stuff, you don't necessarily have time. You don't have 3 days to get back with them. You might be able to feed this in there and just go and take 15 minutes while someone's showing them around the location. You ask them this question, you say, hey, I'll be back with some ideas in a few minutes. And they come back and you show them these ideas. Now, your human chef still has to cook the food, but the AI did a lot of the heavy lifting for at least the initial idea of that creative conceptualization. Now, what I recommend you do is you take it to the next level, because the AI may come up with not as good ideas, but it's going to have some there. And it's going to at least have an ideation thing, which you didn't necessarily have to take yourself out of the event and do that. You might be managing closing the deal and everything else with this client in the other room. But what this can do is actually take it and you can say, you know what, I can work with that. And I think that is what you've done, and you would elevate a standard $50 a plate or $30 a plate catering gig and elevate it into a luxury experience. You could win the bid every time because your proposal is an emotional story, while your competitor's proposal is just a plate of chicken and fish. I guarantee you, if you did this with people and they were out shopping, they would tell 5 other people about, like, oh my gosh, do you know what we're doing for our event, for our corporate event? We are totally doing the following. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, you're kidding. That's so, no one's done this. And these were just ideas I kind of came up with before the show. So, and last night. But the reality of it is that there's a lot of things you can do to expand things into what we're considering AI opportunity as opposed to just the efficiency type options. So you could, here's one, custom software development. This is so for Cowray, which does software, we've been implementing something like this for what we do. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit. Clients come to you a lot of times and say, can't we just do this with AI? And the reality of it is that some of these things are a lot harder to do than you'd think, but they come with an idea. And before you would spend weeks gathering requirements. As a software company, you define architectural documents, you quote them a massive budget to just build version 1.0 to see if the market actually wants it. Now, here's what I'm saying. The idea is rapid validation as a service. So you basically start selling market validation. The biggest risk for a lot of business isn't the bad software, it's building software that nobody wants. So instead of jumping straight into a 6-month build, you offer kind of a 48-hour, maybe a little too aggressive. Maybe it's a 1-week validation sprint, something like that. And using AI assistance, your team builds a completely functional, interactive front-end prototype of whatever the system is in a few days. Looks and feels real, even if the back end is held together with digital duct tape, for lack of a better word. But the idea with it is that you can sell this rapid prototype to clients so they can put it in front of their investors or users immediately. You could create a highly profitable, fast turnaround front-end service that acts as a paid discovery phase, and that helps guarantee you win the massive contract to actually build the actual one once they validate the idea. And that's just an idea we've been toying around with a little bit. Now, I will say that the concept piece on there is where I think it really holds together. Actually, building the software itself takes a bit longer than what a lot of people seem to think. But what I am suggesting and submitting to all of you out there is that you want to stop guarding the old ways of doing business. I do think the majority of the businesses that die in the next 5 years, aside from the normal reasons that businesses close, they won't die because AI replaced them. I think they're going to die because a competitor used AI to offer a service that made the old way look dumb and inefficient in comparison, stupid and slow. And that is not a way to be competing in the world we exist in 2026. So once again, if you're the only accountant offering an interactive tax prep bot or the only roofer texting visual drone summaries, you aren't competing on price anymore. You become a category of one. And that, my friends, is where you want to be in a world populated with these machines. So as always, I want to thank the listeners to the show out there. Without your feedback, we wouldn't have done this deeper dive on what we meant by AI opportunity. It's important that you start thinking beyond just efficiency and look at opportunity, because opportunity is where you are going to make a difference over the next 24 to 36 months. Now, coming up on The Buck Stops Here, we're going to have the next episode. We're going to talk about everyone's favorite topic, the downside of AI, what I'm calling cognitive decline and the creativity tax. Because for every great thing we've been talking about AI, there are pieces of this that are things you need to be very, very aware of. The challenge you are going to have on maintaining your edge in a world where everybody is dulling their blades. And I want you, as a listener to The Buck Stops Here, to not just stand out, but to get ahead and be on the cutting edge of what works in AI and what works in business, and not get put in the drawer because you're too dull to cut anything and you're too dangerous to use. And that's what we're going to talk about on the next episode of The Buck Stops Here. And then the last episode, to wrap up kind of our 9-part series, is going to be an episode on AI burnout. We're going to talk about the very real costs of the AI flywheel. And for those of you out there listening to the show, because most of you listening to the show, at least these episodes in particular, you've probably thought a lot about how you feel like you're working more, not less, now that you're using AI. And we need to talk about the real burnout, the real challenge for you as humans, how you need to get up, get outside, and go meet other humans and talk to them, and really struggle with how these machines are being used and operated. So all that's coming up on The Buck Stops Here. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single episode of what's coming next. I am excited and gratified to get to have the privilege of doing this podcast each week for listeners like you. If you've enjoyed these episodes, please go online and like and subscribe to them. Give us 5-star reviews on Apple and let other people know how much you enjoy these episodes, and spread the word with other people, because that's the best way you can compliment the show, is by sharing it with those people you love and care about and help their businesses be more successful. So with that, go out there, do great work, and be awesome. And for the Buck Stops Here podcast, I've been your host, David Maples. Take care.